In the summer of 1948, two experienced commercial pilots encountered something in the skies over Alabama that would challenge everything the aviation industry thought it knew about flight. What began as a routine passenger flight became one of the most credible UFO sightings in American history, documented by the military and investigated at the highest levels of government. The evidence they left behind raises questions that remain unanswered to this. Before we begin our investigation, subscribe for more unsolved cases. It was July 24, 1948, just after 2:30 in the afternoon, when Eastern Airlines Flight 609 departed Houston's Hobby Airport bound for Atlanta. Captain Clarence Chiles, a veteran pilot with over 8,000 flight hours, sat in the left seat alongside First Officer John Whitted, himself an experienced aviator with 4,000 hours of logged flight time. The Douglas DC-3 carried 20 passengers through clear summer skies at 8,000 feet. The flight path took them northeast across the Gulf Coast states, a route both men had flown countless times before. As they approached the Alabama-Georgia border near Montgomery, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pine forest below. Air traffic was light, and the radio chatter minimal. Nothing in the peaceful scene suggested that the next few minutes would forever change how these two professional pilots viewed the world above the clouds. At approximately 2:45 in the afternoon, while cruising at their assigned altitude, both pilots simultaneously noticed an unusual light ahead of their aircraft. The object appeared to be moving toward them at tremendous speed, initially resembling another aircraft's landing lights. Captain Chiles instinctively prepared for evasive action, assuming they were on a collision course with another plane. What happened next defied every principle of aerodynamics both men understood. The object passed their aircraft on the right side, but as it did, both pilots observed details that no conventional aircraft of that era could explain. Craft appeared to be cigar-shaped, approximately 100 feet in length, with what looked like 2 rows of rectangular windows along its fuselage. Bright white light emanated from these openings, creating an almost ethereal glow against the darkening sky. The object's most disturbing feature was a brilliant orange-red flame or exhaust that extended from its rear section, shooting backward approximately 50 feet. This propulsion system bore no resemblance to any known aircraft engine of the time. The flame pulsed and flickered with an intensity that seemed to bend the air around it, creating heat distortions visible even from their distance. Both pilots later reported that the craft appeared to be metallic, with a smooth, seamless surface that reflected the late afternoon light. No wings, tail section, or other conventional aircraft components were visible. The object moved with a fluid grace that seemed to ignore the laws of physics, making no sound audible over their own engine noise. The encounter lasted approximately 10 seconds, but in that brief window, both men observed something that would haunt them for the rest of their careers. As the object passed, Captain Chiles noticed what appeared to be a cockpit or control area at the front of the craft, illuminated by the same bright white light as the windows. Though he could not make out specific details, the suggestion of an occupied space within the vessel was unmistakable. First Officer Whitted focused on the object's movement patterns, noting that it seemed to pull up sharply after passing their aircraft, climbing at an angle and speed that would have been impossible for any known aircraft. The acceleration was instantaneous, without the gradual power buildup required by conventional propulsion systems. Within seconds, the craft had disappeared into the gathering dusk, leaving only the fading impression of that orange-red exhaust trail. One passenger, Clarence McKelvey, was awake during the encounter and later corroborated seeing a bright light pass the aircraft, though he could not observe the detailed features that the pilots reported from their vantage point in the cockpit. His testimony, while limited, provided crucial third-party verification that something extraordinary had occurred. Upon landing in Atlanta, both pilots immediately reported the incident to Eastern Airlines officials, who in turn contacted the military. The matter was taken seriously enough that Air Force investigators arrived within hours to interview the crew. The pilots' reputation for reliability and their detailed, consistent accounts made dismissing the incident impossible. The Air Force's investigation, conducted under the auspices of Project Blue Book, produced a file that revealed far more questions than answers. Technical analysis of the pilots' descriptions raised disturbing possibilities about the craft's capabilities. The reported size, speed, and maneuverability suggested technology decades ahead of anything in the American or known foreign arsenal. Weather conditions at the time of the encounter were documented as clear with unlimited visibility. No atmospheric phenomena could account for the sighting. Radar stations in the area were contacted, but the limitations of 1948 radar technology meant that tracking such a fast-moving object would have been difficult, if not impossible. The military's internal communications regarding the incident, later declassified, revealed a level of concern that contradicted their public statements. References to unconventional aircraft and unknown propulsion systems appeared throughout the documentation. Several high-ranking officers recommended increased surveillance of commercial flight routes following the encounter. What made the Chiles Whitted sighting particularly significant was the discovery of similar encounters reported by other pilots in the weeks surrounding July 24th. These incidents, initially filed separately, began to form a pattern that suggested coordinated observation of American airspace by unknown aircraft. The consistency of descriptions across multiple independent witnesses created a compelling case for something beyond conventional explanation. The Air Force's official conclusion, released months later, attributed the sighting to a meteor or fireball. This explanation, however, failed to account for the detailed structural features both pilots observed, the controlled flight path, or the apparent intelligence behind the craft's movements. Meteors do not have windows, cockpits, or the ability to change course. Alan Heineke, the astronomer serving as scientific consultant to Project Blue Book, privately expressed doubts about the meteor explanation. His personal notes, discovered decades later, revealed his belief that the Chiles Whitted encounter represented something genuinely anomalous that deserved continued investigation rather than bureaucratic dismissal. The incident's impact on both pilots was profound and lasting. Captain Chiles, previously skeptical of UFO reports, became an advocate for serious investigation of aerial phenomena. His reputation within the aviation community lent credibility to claims that might otherwise have been dismissed. First Officer Whitted, though more reserved in his public statements, never wavered from his original account of the encounter. In the years following the incident, both men reported being approached by government representatives who requested additional details about their sighting. These interviews, conducted away from official channels, suggested ongoing interest in the case at levels higher than publicly acknowledged. The nature of these contacts and the identity of those conducting them remained classified. The technical specifications of the observed craft continued to puzzle aviation experts. The combination of size, speed, and maneuverability described by the pilots exceeded the capabilities of any aircraft in development at the time. The propulsion system, producing that distinctive orange-red exhaust, bore no resemblance to jet engines, rockets, or any other known technology. Analysis of the craft's apparent construction revealed additional mysteries. The seamless metallic surface, lacking visible joints or construction seams, suggested manufacturing techniques beyond 1948 capabilities. The uniform illumination of the windows implied an internal power source of extraordinary efficiency and output. The encounter's timing, occurring during the early years of the Cold War, added geopolitical significance to the technical mysteries. If the craft represented foreign technology, its capabilities suggested a breakthrough that would have shifted the balance of power dramatically. The military's inability to identify or intercept such objects raised uncomfortable questions about national security. Project Blue Book's files on the Chiles Whitted case eventually grew to include dozens of related incidents, witness interviews, and technical analyses. The pattern that emerged suggested a systematic observation of American airspace by unknown entities, with commercial aviation routes receiving particular attention. The case file's most disturbing element was a series of radar contacts recorded in the weeks following the encounter. These contacts, displaying flight characteristics similar to those described by Chiles and Whitted, appeared on multiple radar installations across the southeastern United States. The objects demonstrated the ability to accelerate, decelerate, and change direction in ways that defied conventional physics. What do you think Captain Chiles and First Officer Whitted really encountered in those Alabama skies? The evidence suggests something far beyond the meteor explanation offered by officials. Subscribe to explore more cases where the official story fails to explain the documented facts.